Welcome to Positively Nerdy number 102, Ryan and Leah at the movies. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Positively Nerdy and the latest installment of Ryan and Leah at the movies. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Leah.
And we are back to discuss all things movies, from new releases to news to rampant speculation in the case of this particular episode, and a seventh episode that will be forthcoming. And what else are we talking about today?
Thrillers versus horror movies.
That's right.
We had a lot of fun the last time we were with everybody in our debate about sequel or
reboot.
Reboot, thank you. Comeback.
Remake.
Like it's an actor.
Don't call it a comeback.
Yeah. And so, not that we're going to do this every time, but we were chatting about this particular concept of thriller versus horror with some of the movies that I'm going to talk about today. And we thought it would be fun in the very near future of coming into October, which is, I think, horror movie month, if you know, in preparation for Halloween, to talk about the differences between thriller and horror films and how some movies get clumped into one category or the other and why they do. And chatting about some ones that I think are on the fence. So I think that should be a fun time.
All right. Sounds good. But before we get to any of that, technically not at the movies, but very much relating to something that's dominating the movie world these days, is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. premiered this week.
Yes.
So we're not going to get too into it, but just kind of real quick off the cuff, we thought we should at least mention it. Leah, what did you think of the pilot?
I really enjoyed it. I loved that it addressed some of the things that happened in the previous films. Specifically, Avengers obviously was the last big one. Iron Man 3, of course, came out after that, but I haven't seen Iron Man 3, so I can't say.
They did a lot of Iron Man 3 stuff.
Okay, and so that might have been some of the things that were.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot you haven't seen that yet. Yeah.
So I need to see that to make some things a little more clear. But
well, it came out on Blu-ray this week. So
yes, but I really loved it. I think it's awesome that Marvel has now is producing a TV show on primetime. It's just something different and fun on the networks. And I think in a way to compete with some of the really original programming that's happening off network TV. And I'm really excited for it. Love that Agent Coulson is back.
But with a bit of a mystery.
Yes.
As to why and how.
He should never know.
Yeah.
But
that was a little bit much.
But I mean, I loved it. And I loved that very opening sequence when they're looking at the superhero figurines in the window.
Yeah.
I thought that piece was really cool because, you know, in a real world situation like that, you know, if we really did have superheroes, they would be idolized in the same way we do our fictitious ones. So I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to see where the series goes. And I thought Joss Whedon gave a great pilot to get people hooked in.
Yeah, it was a little more jokey than I thought it was going to be.
It's on at 8 o'clock, which at first surprised me, but then it kind of made sense too to hit that young, like 8 to 12 crowd.
It's part of why, going way back and way kind of off topic or seemingly off topic, that's part of the reason Disney bought Marvel, is because Disney has that, tween girl thing locked down. Boys, on the other hand, are a little tougher nut to crack.
Yes.
So Marvel initially, and now Star Wars. Star Wars appeals to a huge group, but certainly to that young boy group as well. That's kind of where they want it. So 8 o'clock,
Prime
there's
time.
A reason for that.
Yeah.
But also it's Joss Whedon, and I was expecting perhaps more of a movie tone, and what we got was more of a Whedon television tone,
which I also
which
enjoyed.
is fine.
Yes.
It's just not what I was ready for.
Right.
I really like the callbacks to the movies. I'm not sick of it yet, but I could see that. Like, talking about the movies too much is going to just remind me constantly that we're never going to see Thor or Cap or Iron Man in this series.
But I also think, too, that if they want to segue into the series, I think that it was necessary to do those things in the pilot. And I don't think that they'll keep that way. I think they'll go off in their own direction and have their, original. I mean, even the superhero that we saw in the pilot, or
the gifted is what they call them.
Yes, not superhero, but the gifted. So, I think that they're going to be branching off into their own storylines, original storylines. But, of course, we were introduced to them through the movies. And now we need to build their, what this shield force looks like.
Right.
When they're not dealing with the major, superheroes. And who knows? I've heard rumor, and this could totally be fake, that there's, the possibility with Thor coming out this November that there might be a cameo from Chris Hemsworth.
That would be pretty awesome.
But I have no idea if that's just like wild speculation or not. But it makes sense to me if we're thinking about that they're intertwined.
It would be nice to see, because this obviously came from the movies, it would be nice to have something, and I'm not even thinking of a Thor cameo, but something, this came from the movies, and if something from S.H.I.E.L.D. went back into the movies.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Because, and I'm pretty sure, I have a few theories, and I don't want to get into them just yet with Coulson. Mm-hmm. And some of those theories could easily feed back into the feature films.
Right.
And Avengers 2 and beyond. Mm-hmm. So, depending on what is going on with Coulson, it could easily feed back into the movies. And it would be nice that if then the movies reference the show.
Yes.
That would be awesome.
Yes.
I really liked it. I love the character of Coulson, even if it's not quite Coulson. We don't really know what's going on. For all intents and purposes, as a viewer, it's Coulson. Mm-hmm. And that's enjoyable. I like, for the most part, this team they put together. Their dreamy hunk sniper guy, I don't like at all. Uh-huh. Everybody else on the team I'm already a fan of.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm supposed to like that other guy, so I don't know if I am or not. But I don't. So
yeah, and I just have to say really quick before we move on that when Agent Coulson came in for his first scene, and he was like, "It's what's it?
It's darker on that corner. I couldn't resist." Or
something. Oh my gosh, yes, it's level 7. And it was
welcome to level 7.
Welcome to level 7. It was just so over dramatic, and then they made it.
And then he made fun of how over dramatic it was,
and I loved that. I thought and that was very Whedon-esque. I thought. And just automatically I was like, okay, if this show has this smart little back and forth play, I'm going to really enjoy it. And I did. And I'm looking forward to next week.
Yes. Speaking of Disney, that's my labored segue. A movie that comes out, I think, what did we discuss? It comes out in 2 weeks.
Yep.
So unfortunately, we're not going to get to talk about it.
It's going to come out the day that our
next episode is released. So we're not going to get to talk about it then. But we need to let everybody know, if you haven't already heard, of a little movie called Escape from Tomorrow.
Yes, it is a horror film that was filmed at Disney on personal cameras or, digital devices.
Guerilla-style.
Yes. And apparently, Disney had no knowledge of this film being done in their parks, which in some ways I think makes sense.
A whole lot of families walking around with video cameras.
Yes.
And nowadays you can get a very high-quality camera
for
that doesn't look that doesn't look like a high-quality camera.
Yes.
There's not a lot of difference appearance-wise between what a family would take on vacation and what this guy would need. This guy being Randy Moore, who wrote and directed it. They filmed it at Disney World and at Disneyland.
Yes, and if you haven't checked out the preview, watch it. It's fascinating. It certainly piqued my interest, not only as a Disney fan, as a horror fan, but as a B-movie, independent film.
It's been described as having a very strong David Lynch type feel to it.
Yeah, I was reading about that when we were doing some of our research, and so I'm really intrigued by it. The cool thing is that it's only going to be out in limited release, but it's coming out on demand on October 11th, so you'll be able to watch it from your home. That's what Ryan and I are planning on doing. We will definitely be reviewing it at the end of October, just in time for the horror movie season, but some really interesting kind of plays on some of the more iconic places in Disney World in the preview. So I can't wait to see what they're, not revealing to us.
I'm really looking forward to it. And if you follow, most of the more, the movie news sites, or if you're a Disney fan and you follow one of the Disney news feeds on Twitter, things like that. Not a Disney official news feed, but one of those feeds that puts up anything related to Disney. You've probably heard a little bit about it. You haven't heard anything from Disney, because Disney is not commenting on this movie in any way, shape, or form, which I think, at first I was like, why isn't Disney condemning this, or, giving in their 2 cents, yada, yada, yada. And apparently they have decided, quite intelligently, that the best way to fight this movie is to not talk about this movie. So they are basically taking a stance of no comment, not going to feed any fuel onto its fire, and are just kind of stepping back. The only thing, apparently, there was an issue with the music from It's a Small World.
Yes, because in the preview, too, you see them on It's a Small World ride. And I can't remember the little boy's name. They're like, what's wrong with Timmy? And his eyes go totally black. And just that scene alone just, automatically sold me on one.
I really love when they're running away from the geosphere at Epcot.
Yes.
It's like rolling down after them, a la Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. But, yes, apparently they used too much of the song, or they are fighting.
Yeah, apparently that was the only thing in the... There was like a Sundance cut, not a Sundance, Cannes?
I believe it was at Sundance. No,
was it Sundance? One of the big film festivals, they had a cut of it, and apparently that was the only thing Disney...
It was Sundance.
...did bother to come out and say. So, but again, you haven't heard Disney talk about it, which I think is brilliant on Disney's part, but at the same time, it's not going to stop anybody from going to see it. I think they just kind of... not a fight they can win, so life goes on.
Yep, and I think that... it'll be interesting to see what this movie does after it comes out. I mean, since it's not getting a larger release in theater, I don't know what its fate will be.
It's coming out in October, which is good.
Yep.
And word of mouth should help this movie a lot.
I almost wonder if it's going to take the Blair Witch Project kind of stance in that point where it's like small independent film, maybe not the best quality, but will become renowned for originality and when it's done. Yeah, so I'm really intrigued and can't wait to see it.
Nobody else is getting away with this.
Yeah.
I will add that Disney is going to be on this now.
Because Disney don't take crap from nobody. In fact, I mean, just because I heard on the news just this week that Disney is changing their policies.
They're revamping their... I saw that too.
For disabled people because of the issues they were having with affluent families renting disabled people, basically, to cut the line. So, yeah.
Well, to go totally off topic for a second, when I worked at Disney, that was an issue because... Now Disney builds their rides and their queues to accommodate guests with disabilities. Mm-hmm. And there's still that mentality that I get to cut to the front of the line. No, you get to cut to the front of the line on Splash Mountain because there are stairs and narrow queue lines. Mm-hmm. Now all the newer rides, they're big and they're wide and there's ramps and there's not stairs and it's accessible to everybody. And then The news that broke a while ago was just egregious and awful, and of course Disney's going to fix it. Bring it back to what we're supposed to be talking about. This is something that will not happen again.
Right.
There will probably be lots of copycats trying to do something like this.
Yes. But
you can believe that nobody's getting away with this again. And I love to, again, Disney not fighting it. They're not commenting on it either, but they're also, it's like, all right, you got us.
Well, they not have to be behind closed doors be like... Man, these people, I mean, they almost probably, I mean, you must be like, man, we got to give them credit.
In some ways,
how did they get away with this?
But again, you can't acknowledge that.
No. Hey, but behind closed doors, they've got to be like,
probably.
All right, I'm sure they're going to be watching it on demand on October 11th. I'm sure they've seen it before then, but anyway.
No such thing as bad publicity, right?
Yes. Even if it is the geosphere rolling off and attacking poor fans.
Yes. All right, and one more Disney-related thing before we get into the heart of...
Before Disney takes over the entire movie world, I feel like. But
well, with Marvel and Star Wars, which is what we're about to talk about, it's a little too late. And because of Marvel and Star Wars, they've also cornered the market on rampant speculation on the internet. Disney now has a monopoly on rampant internet speculation.
Yes.
And the latest batch... Well, let's get to the more speculative ones. The latest batch involves David Cumberbatch, actually. Apparently up for a role, if not quite already signed, technically sort of a lot of buzz, it's not going away, that he will have a role in Episode 7, maybe even the entire sequel trilogy. I have no problem with this at all. I think Cumberbatch is certainly a commodity right now because of Into Darkness, but I also think he's a terrific actor.
Yes.
I think he's... again, he's known in some circles, and certainly the Star Wars crowd circle he's known, but he's well enough of an unknown, for the most part, to blend into a role.
Right.
He's not a
superstar.
It's not going to be, there's Benedict Cumberbatch. It's going to be, there's...
That guy I know from other movies.
Bad guy, probably.
Yes.
And they've said they're not doing it, but they've lied before. If he is playing Grand Admiral Thrawn... I will lose my mind. And I know you don't know who that is.
In terms of awesomeness?
In terms of awesomeness.
Okay.
He is a villain in the expanded universe, the novels that pick up where the movies left off. Mm-hmm. He is the bad guy, the prominent bad guy in the trilogy that kicked off the expanded universe. Very, very awesome alien bad guy that is Benedict Cumberbatch would fit that perfectly. Like, I enjoyed him as Khan, but it wasn't quite Khan kind of thing, and we're not getting into the whole Into Darkness thing again. But seeing him as Grand Admiral Thrawn is just brilliant casting. So if that turns out to be true that he's in it, great. I don't think the Thrawn thing is true, but I wanted to bring it up just to say that it would be awesome.
Yes.
Because I don't think they're going to use that storyline at all. This is apparently Lucas's treatments from way back, but we've heard that story before too. A bit of news that is apparently all but confirmed, and I want to believe it because Jedi News, actually jedinews.co.uk, pretty reputable Star Wars fan site, is reporting that there's been casting for not only Star Wars Rebels, but Star Wars Episode VII, and it's the same guy. Now, Leah, I'm going to butcher his name.
All right, the actor's name is David Oyelowo, I believe. It's Oyelowo, if you wanted to break it down. Actually, it says pronounced O-Yellow.
O-Yellow.
Yes, sorry about that. If you're listening, David Oyelowo, I didn't mean to slaughter your name if I had taken a moment.
Let me put your mind at ease. He's not.
And I'm sure all of you are like, who is this person? Well, you'll
recognize him immediately.
Look at him, you'll recognize him immediately. He's in tons of movies. Jack Reacher, he was in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. He was in Lincoln. He was in Red Tails, a very predominant role in that movie, which Ryan and I both really enjoyed, which was also
and a Lucasfilm
movie. Lee Daniels, the butler, he was actually just in recently, if you caught that, and I talked about that. He plays one of the sons. So he's been in several movies over the years. You'll definitely recognize him when you take a look at him, but I'm super stoked just because
I'm excited about it.
Again, he is a quality actor.
I was gonna say I wouldn't say he's ever blown me away, but he's a very good actor.
Mm-hmm. Well, you haven't seen The Butler. He was pretty awesome.
Okay, you're right. I haven't seen that. And again, he's not a name, right. So he's gonna blend into whatever, which is important to me in a Star Wars movie, even though I thought Samuel Jackson remarkably blended into the sequels, or the prequels,
given the fact that he was
Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And apparently he's also doing a voice in Rebels. Now, we have no idea who he's playing in either one, but the fact that he's apparently, again, speculative, rumored to be doing both is insane to me.
And but I think it's awesome.
I think it's cool too, but I don't see how he could be playing the same character. So it's weird that he would be doing two different characters.
Right. But if it's just his voice.
You're right. You're right. It's weird to me that he'd be doing both.
I think it's just exciting in general that we're finally starting to get some information about what might be coming out and what might be.
We gotta be doing something. And I gotta feed the rumor bug somehow, because we're not talking about that other movie that's coming out in 2015. So we have to talk about something. So I'll have to round up the Star Wars posse, my brothers in the Force, Joe, and Rark, and maybe we'll go nuts on a Star Wars podcast sometime. But for now, there's that, and I think it's a little bit more in speculation, but it's not official yet either. But like I said, I had to talk some Star Wars.
Yes, and looking forward to hopefully a total confirmation and more actors rolling in as we.
And I can guarantee that every time someone's announced, it'll be right after we recorded, and we'll be the last to report on it.
Yes, because that seems to be the trend. As soon as we finished recording, we heard about Escape from Tomorrow, literally like less than 24 hours after we recorded. So I was actually pretty excited that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fell in within the appropriate range.
Well, so. Yeah, exactly.
Even though it's not a movie. Maybe that's why it fell correctly for us. But.
And now, as we head into kind of the meat of this episode, Leah's here with a brand new cinematic consultation.
All right. So tonight I'm going to be, this week.
Whenever you're listening to it.
Tonight, tomorrow, or any day that you decide to listen to it.
On-demand entertainment. Yes. You listen when you want to.
I'm going to be talking about a small independent film coming out in 2007 called An American Crime. I just have to get out a shout out to my friend Andrew, who is the person that recommended this film to me quite a while ago, actually. He had told me he had watched it and how it had really impacted him. And I recently found it on Netflix and thought, oh my gosh, Andrew, he told me this movie was awesome. I like these sorts of movies. I'm going to watch it.
Spoiler alert.
Hey, come on. I haven't seen it yet. It doesn't have anything to do with the plot. Still, I like to go in fresh.
Thank you, spoiler alert.
An American Crime is a true story about a young girl in the 1960s, an actual teenage girl named Sylvia Lightgens. Her and her sister were living with a neighbor woman and her family after her parents left to work for a carnival. And as the story builds, the girl, Sylvia, is basically held captive in this woman's basement after a series of events that happen. And they, like, severely torture this poor soul for months until she finally dies. And there's no... I'm not giving away anything in the movie with this. This is all public information. And, you know, I'm sure if you watched a preview or anything like that, or you just looked it up on IMDb, you'd get that same information. But,
well, we'll throw the spoiler alert up ahead of this
yes.
anyway, because people would complain if you told them Titanic sunk. So
yes.
we just want to have our bases covered.
Yes.
Go ahead.
But it was definitely had the feel of an independent film, but it had a great cast. Ellen Page actually plays Sylvia Likens, and Catherine Keener actually plays the mother who holds her captive. It was just, I found it to be a really powerful movie, hard to watch in parts, especially some of the torture scenes. And what was really disturbing was not only that the mother got involved, but neighborhood kids got involved, and like several people knew she was being like kept in this basement. And, you know, at the time, now you think about it, like, her parents didn't have a lot of communication with the mother because, you know, they didn't always have access to telephones, and
right.
They were communicating through letters. And so it wasn't, you know, when they hadn't heard from their daughter, it wasn't totally, you know, like, suspicious. But nowadays, something like this, I would hope could never possibly happen, just given the technology piece, because she did have parents that cared about her and just
right.
had left her in the care of this woman. But, it was a very disturbing movie, and really powerful. Not something for the light of heart, I will tell you that.
Don't catch me watching.
No, but a fascinating film, and it just, again, solidifies to me the horror that just is in our world. I mean, I don't think we have to make up the things for entertainment when there's so many horrible things. And I'm not saying that, oh, we should make everything that's horrible in the world be entertainment. But what I'm saying is, it's just continues to boggle my mind, the true stories that are out there of these horrible things that happen to people. And anyway, it was really powerful to me, and it took a while for me to stop thinking about it constantly because of the things that occurred in it. But
sounds awful, which is why I watch Star Wars and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. instead of real world movies.
I know, and I've always had a soft spot for true crime. I've always found it fascinating, and even in the books I read and other things, I do like to watch a lot of true crime on TV too. So it's not surprising that I found this movie enjoyable in a way that you can find a movie like this enjoyable. But if you like that sort of thing, it might not be one you've seen before or heard about, but check it out. It's called American Crime. It is on Netflix streaming. So if you pay the $8 a month, you can watch it. So
all right.
I feel like we should be getting like money for talking about it.
I was going to say, you got to stop mentioning them if they're not going to give us any money. All right, so that kind of leads into another movie that you...
Yeah, I just wanted...
I was away from the microphone when I said that. So that kind of leads into another movie that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, and it's funny. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm like gearing up for October, which is just the fun month of watching crappy horror films.
And we will hopefully have some awesome episodes for you in the month of October.
Yes. But I also watched another film between the last two times we met called Compliance, which is also a small independent film, and another based on a true story situation. This movie is less graphic and more roundabout. It's more why am I blanking on the word? You have to infer.
Implied. Yes,
implied and inferred in what's going on. But it is the story of a young fast food worker who is brought into her boss's office because there's been a complaint that she has stolen from someone, and the police are on the phone, and they want her detained. And it is about what this person on the phone makes them do to this girl over the course of hours, that they basically hold her captive in this office while they're waiting for the police to come. And as I was watching the film, I felt too, like, what is wrong with people? Like, I think, people can be smart, but in certain situations, like, how dumb were these people that were working at this fast food restaurant? And the poor girl, I mean, she has no control, and they continue to make her do more and more ridiculous things because they believe this man is a police officer, when really he is making a prank phone call from somewhere else in the United States and has been this habitual offender or whatever. And they talk about it as the movie goes on, but it builds and builds and builds to the culmination of what happens to her, and you don't see it, but it's totally implied what happens, and then it's talked about at the very end of the film. But again, disturbing in a different way. It didn't have to be graphic and in your face to be disturbing. It was more about what we do to people and the gullibility of people, and the lengths we go to not speak up about things that we think are wrong, or when are not following our gut feelings about things, because the actors in this movie are few faces I would recognize, but no one that we would know as like
Jumped
big
out
actors.
at you.
But people's faces that I was like, oh, I know I've seen them in things before. But the acting in it is really good. Just in terms of how they handle the situation and these things, and the stupidity of the manager especially is just astounding to me in the film. But it's great. It's only like 85 minutes. It's pretty short, but it's really intriguing, especially when you're thinking about another like kind of, I wouldn't necessarily call it like captive, because she wasn't like held hostage, but basically she felt like she couldn't leave because the police were going to arrest her for this fake crime that this man made up. And just in that same kind of realm of not having control over what's going on to you, in a lot different way than I've seen in film before. So
this is one I actually did know about because I was working in fast food when it happened. So it was kind of,
which I didn't even realize until we talked about this movie. That
mandatory discussion for us and all of our employees to not be stupid, basically.
So anyways, it was an awesome movie. I really enjoyed it, but was disturbed about this as well, and it had to sit with me for a little while I thought about it. Mostly just, again, about the stupidity that people do and the levels that we take things because we think we're supposed to, even if they feel wrong.
Yes, I was only following orders.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is going to lead into more of Leah talking, because the only one of us that got out to the actual theater in the last 2 weeks to see a new movie was Leah, and you saw
Prisoners, and I talked about this the last time about how excited I have been for this film, and after seeing these other two movies, I was even more intrigued to want to see it, because I thought that the three of these movies would go nicely together in terms of their content. But for those of you that don't know, Prisoners is a film about two families that are celebrating a holiday together. They live in the same neighborhood, and they have two teenage children between the two families and two young girls. And obviously they've been friends for a long time. You see the relationship at the beginning of the film, and their two young daughters go missing on Thanksgiving Day. And the movie is about approximately a week after these girls have a week span of time after these girls have disappeared, and what happens to these people. And honestly, I've thought a lot about how I wanted to talk about this film, because I was blown away by it. I will say that I was absolutely blown away by it. When it was done, I had to take like a few minutes in the theater and process even what I had just seen, and I'm still kind of processing it. And I haven't seen anybody else that has seen it yet, and it has a lot of twists, so I'm going to be very careful on how I talk about it, because I absolutely do not want to ruin this film for anybody, but I want to do it justice as well. The movie stars Jake Gyllenhaal. He is the detective in the film who is working the case of finding the two girls, and then the families, the parents are played by Hugh Jackman and Terrence Howard play the fathers in the film, and then Maria Bello and Viola Davis play the mothers in the film. And I was actually surprised. I thought that all of the parents are going to have more of an equal footing, but really the movie focuses more on the detective Jake Gyllenhaal's character and Hugh Jackman's character as one of the fathers. Great supporting actors with Paul Dano and Melissa Leo. Paul Dano plays and this is by no means giving away anything, it's in the preview, but Paul Dano plays who they originally suspect to have been the kidnapper of the girls, and they release him because they don't have enough evidence and they don't think he has done it. And that's when Hugh Jackman takes the law into his own hands and actually kidnaps him. And so it has many layers, and what it means to even be a prisoner. I mean, prisoner on a kidnap level, prisoner internally with your own demons, things like that. And there were so many interesting twists. I thought I had it figured out, and then something else would come about, and I would just be like, okay, I have to start from the beginning. I can't wait to watch it again after seeing the whole film to see if I pick up on more clues that I didn't. But I also sometimes know that I can be a little naive in a film and want to just blindly trust people. And so I also know that maybe I might not have caught everything that maybe I should have from the beginning. But it was an absolutely astounding film. I can't recommend it enough. I was a little turned off when I saw it was 2.5 hours long, but when I went and sat in theater, I would never have known it was that long. It was really nicely paced. It had a really intriguing story and just built and built and built upon it. And it was just superb. And I can't wait to see what happens with it during the season of, you know, getting more accolades, because I would even put it on the level of, you know, Silence of the Lambs or Seven in terms of film that just like really what I thought was just astounding. I will say it is not for the faint of heart. I was surprised at how hard some of the scenes were for me to watch, given that I enjoyed this genre of film so much. There were a few times that I closed my eyes in anticipation of something, and I heard the reaction of the audience, and I was like, I'm really glad I'm not watching this right now, because there were like actual, like, you know, theater-wide reactions to things. But I just have to say, Hugh Jackman, he does not get the credit he deserves in terms of his acting. I'm just totally blown away by him. In just the last year alone, I've seen him in a musical playing Jean Valjean in Les Mis. He was played Wolverine, and then now he's in this film. 3 totally different performances, all amazing. That man is a god. So
well put. I didn't see the movie, but I'd agree.
So in thinking about that, and in my thinking and preparing about October with horror films and thrillers, Ryan and I had a conversation about what makes a thriller, what makes a horror film, and how we have this like divide between. And we thought it'd be fun to play a little game again.
Uh-oh.
And I have compiled a list of what I think are movies that could be on the fence of horror and thriller. And we're going to talk about that. But first, maybe we should talk a little bit about, like, general, like, if we were, like, to make a list
What's
of
a thriller
components of a horror film,
right.
components of a thriller film. So, Ryan, what would you say are the components that you would put in a horror film?
Well,
Like-
broad strokes, the difference is a thriller is real, a horror movie is not. Realistic.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
In a horror movie. Again, broad strokes. A horror movie is shock value, intentional jumps or red herrings or straight up, you know, thrills, gore, whatever.
Right.
Thriller is more psychological. Both of them could have implied terrors, I guess, but thriller is more deliberate, more real, not trying to scare you. It's just part of the experience of going to see that movie.
Right.
As opposed to like a horror movie where, you know, the woman closes the medicine cabinet and then Jason's right behind her. Like those kind of things, that's a horror movie, not a thriller necessarily.
Right. And I agree that I think that there is a lot more gore and like jumps in terms of like scare factor in horror films, but I also think that, you know, I think horror films get a bad rap too, because I think that that is like the, you know, the thing everybody jumps to in a horror film.
Right.
So, you know, where I think I might fight more on the fence depending on the film. And that's why I thought, ooh, it'd be fun to talk about this. I do agree. I think thriller has more of a build-up. Typically, you know, most of the time when you see thriller, a lot of it has to do with, like, crime stories or, you know, things like that.
There's not a lot of room for levity in a thriller, where in a horror movie you're going to have comedic moments still.
That's true. And, you know, more than likely, thrillers aren't going to have 8 sequels. Like horror films.
I wouldn't know.
Typically, thrillers have an ending.
So sequels are automatically horror movies? Is that what
That's
you're saying?
not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that for the most part, I would say that most thrillers, you know, I can't, I'm trying to think offhand, and I'm sure there are people that couldn't school me in this, but, you know, where I think of, you know, thrillers, where in my conventional sense of thrillers, that, you know, they typically end, they don't, you know, resurrect the murderer in the thriller.
That's a good,
Yes.
a legitimate ending.
Right.
That's a good point,
Yes.
Actually.
Yes.
And again, this is all arbitrary.
Yes.
This is our opinions. It doesn't have to be your opinion.
Yes.
So, and I have not seen your list.
Nope. All right. So, Ryan, yep, you have not seen the list, and I have several on here, and, you know, some might be shorter, some might be longer conversations, but here we go. Thriller? Horror? You decide.
Okay.
All right. First movie, Seven. Now, it came out in the mid-90s. For those of you that don't know, Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Kevin Spacey.
If you don't know what Seven is, you need to stop this podcast immediately and go watch it.
Right.
That's
Yes.
number one.
Seven. Okay.
I would call Seven a thriller.
Okay.
It sets everything we talked about, again, these are our definitions. It sets a mood. Everything within it not that there aren't a few one-liners here and there that are going to make you laugh, but everything in it is established from the get-go. There's nothing paranormal in this movie. There's nothing supernatural in this movie. It has a definitive ending. An amazing ending.
Yeah, one of the best endings of all time, in my opinion.
It's a definitive ending. It's there's nothing in it. There's a few jump moments.
Yes.
There's some legitimate jump, knock you out of your seat jump moments, but they're context. They're not gimmicky.
Right.
So.
But I don't think that all horror movies have gimmicky jump moments either. I
think,
yes, but I understand what you're saying.
It's a thriller to me. Okay. It's not a horror movie.
The one thing I question about it is that there is a lot of gore. I mean, now, my one place was saying that it would still be a thriller is that it doesn't take the gore to the extreme. Like the ending. Here, sorry, spoiler alert, but this movie came out like 16 years ago. At the end of the film, when Gwyneth Paltrow's head is insinuated
in the box,
you see her hair in the box. In a horror film, they would have pulled the head out, or you would have seen the head as some horrible prosthetic head.
Gimmicky.
Yes. And they didn't do that, obviously. Yep. And I think that, it was horrible enough what happened. We didn't need to see it. But, I was back and forth about 7, but my gut says thriller. My gut says thriller. Okay. All right. Kiss the Girls.
I've not seen it.
Okay. It's Morgan Freeman and Ashley Judd. And actually Carrie Elwes is in it. And it's about a large group of women that continue to be abducted, and one escapes, which is Ashley Judd's character. And many of them are murdered too, and they keep finding them in these woods. But it's like found out, and they're like, it's not really revealing anything because you see it through the majority of the film. But the women are actually like held in some like creepy cave, like underground sort of structure, and they're made to do like horrible creepy things, and then they're murdered. So hard for you to talk about it, but it did have a sequel actually called Along Came a Spider, not based on the same characters. Morgan Freeman returned as the same character, so it was kind of more of a detective series, I guess, about crime. So I would say thriller for this film, because it didn't have the gore. It had a lot of the implied, had a definitive storyline.
It sounds to me like it.
Yes.
Based on that.
Okay. The Sixth Sense.
Well, again, Sixth Sense, by my parameters, is supernatural. But there's not any gore.
Right.
There's a few
scare moments.
There's a few jumps and a few scare moments. Oh, wow.
They have touted this movie to be one of the, few horror movies to be nominated for Best Picture for the Academy Awards. I
have no idea. I don't think I'd call it a horror movie. I really don't. I honestly,
I feel like the Sixth Sense is a horror film, but I feel like the Sixth Sense is more of a horror film of like the golden age of cinema. In terms of how horror movies looked then, with really great storyline, really well developed movie.
All right, let me ask you this, just to add my own to the list all of a sudden. Your standard episode of The Twilight Zone.
Okay.
Would those be considered horrors or thrillers? I know they cover a wide range of subject matter.
I would say thriller.
Okay, well, to me, The Sixth Sense is like an episode of The Twilight Zone.
Okay.
They spend the whole time building you up for one thing, and then you get the twist at the end.
Right.
And aside from Rod Serling making a speech, 5 minutes into the movie, it's essentially an episode of The Twilight Zone. So for me, it's much more of a thriller than a horror movie.
Now, I feel more because of the supernatural component of being able to talk to the dead, see the dead.
It does fly in the face of what I said.
Right.
Makes a horror movie, but
yes.
It's not quite a horror movie.
I think, that one might be the most challenging on the list, quite honestly. And it might be, I don't know what the right answer is.
All right, what's next?
All right, the next movie is Jaws.
Jaws is
touted on many horror lists as one of the scariest movies of all time, which it also has, I've seen it on, many people's list of that. And honestly, I've never seen Jaws, which...
But is the fact... I hate that sentence, by the way.
I've never seen Jaws?
Yes. Oh. Is the fact that it's scary make it a horror movie, though? Like, it might not be a pure thriller, but I don't know that it's a pure horror movie either. Just because it's scary.
Because it rides the line. I think that there are some movies that... I think there needs to be a hybrid name for a thriller, a horror movie. Because I think that, probably this movie and Sixth Sense would probably fit into that.
Because it's a movie.
Yes, it is a movie.
No. It's a movie that's scary. It's not a scary movie.
But when they went out to write it, weren't they writing with the intent to be scary? Just like every horror movie is written with the intent to be scary?
Yeah.
I have perplexed him.
Question
mark.
I'm glad this is not a visual.
Because I haven't seen it, I'm saying it's a horror film because I see it on so many horror lists. But
I would probably lean more toward horror, actually.
Okay.
Because it is a primal thing. Like,
yes.
it's about fear.
Yes.
And, overcoming it or not.
And it's had many sequels.
It has had many sequels, you're right. Thankfully, it never had a remake.
Yes. Oh, God.
It doesn't need to because it's perfection. But, yeah, I'd probably lean more toward horror, actually. I don't think it's a thriller at all.
All right, I'm giving myself the Jaws challenge that in the month of October I will watch Jaws.
You somehow
yes.
I want to watch Jaws just because. Okay. So now, yeah, we'll watch it.
All right. Silence of the Lambs. Silencio de los Corderos. Sorry, my Spanish teacher had the Silence of the Lambs Spanish movie poster in the classroom.
Nice. At least you didn't watch it in Spanish class.
Right.
This is, well, aside from sequels, this is a brilliant combination of both. Not necessarily a supernatural aspect to it, but there are jumps and gore and shock value and everything that makes a thriller a thriller.
But I would also contest with the horror genre that it has the iconic villain, as in Hannibal Lecter, where, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't. He's not supernatural, but he's very over the top.
Right.
Very elaborate. Very not dead when you think he's dead.
Right.
Or it's not even him.
Well, I was going to say, isn't that like a Michael Myers sort of character then? I mean,
it is a pretty Michael Myers sort of character. He's just
way more intelligent.
Yes. Yeah.
And not wearing a mask. Oh, wait, yes, he does.
He does kind of wear a mask a little bit.
And actually, there are sequels to this film as well. Yes, there are.
Oh,
Hannibal, and...
it has a prequel.
It has a prequel as well with Anthony Hopkins, which is weird.
Red Dragon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, horror, thriller? I'd go horror on this film.
I'd probably go horror on this
probably
one,
the best horror movie of all time, if we were going to actually put it in in terms of quality film. Okay. All right. Psycho, the original Alfred Hitchcock film, not the remake.
Of course not the remake. Anyway, I think that's a thriller. At the time, it was a horror movie. But now it's a thriller.
Okay. Why wouldn't it still be a horror film?
Because of just not the mentality.
So you're basically saying that the definition of horror has changed from its...
Certainly with a movie like this. This movie is insanely shocking and depraved for the time. Now, not so much. It stands up, I'm not saying that. But it doesn't have the shock value it did when it came out.
Okay.
And the gore, the shower scene, by today's standards, is pretty tame.
Yes.
Though, by the standards when it was released, it was out of control. Yeah.
Yes. And it has really made me want to see the film Hitchcock.
And it's much more mental. It's a mental game.
Yes.
As opposed to a, here's what's on screen game. It's a lot of it's implied until the end, and then, everything's laid bare. But it's an emotional, psychological kind of thing. So I'd go thriller.
I'd put this movie in horror because only because I think, I understand what you're saying, but I think that it was touted as a horror film of its time. I still think it's a horror film, even though you're right. If this movie came out for the first time in 2013, never being seen before, I would probably tout it as a thriller as well. But because...
I remember being at a party in high school. I don't know if it was a Halloween party or a party around Halloween. And when I say party, I mean hanging out with the swim team. Okay. Not like the cool kid party at all. And Psycho was on, and we watched it, and everybody was waiting for the shower scene, and the shower scene came and went, and half the room went, "That's it? Like, this is what I've been hearing about, yada, yada, and did not enjoy the payoff, apparently. So
okay.
That's why I'm talking about.
Which I could see that piece of it, too, and I understand what you're saying. I think that we're just a house divided on that one. Okay. 28 Days Later.
It's a horror movie.
Okay.
It's got zombies. It's got gore.
It does not have zombies.
You're right.
They are infected by a disease.
It has infected people.
The infected.
It has infected. It has...
although I could contest their zombies, too. But they do not...
It's a post-apocalyptic thing. At least for the island of Great Britain. I think they established that the rest of the world is okay. They just quarantine Great Britain, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's the big deal at the end of 28 Weeks Later.
Yeah.
The shock value, the gore, it's not, it's everything is on screen. There's not a lot, anyway, that's psychological.
And I would say that 28 Days Later is a horror film as well.
Okay.
But I find it interesting that you say it's a horror film based on all the other things that you have said previously.
Yeah, I think I'd like to change my answer on Psycho, actually. I think Psycho is still a horror movie. But anyway.
Anyway, I was right, he was wrong. We're no longer
That's not what I said.
That's basically what you said, but anyway, we're moving on. All right. The Exorcist.
Well, it's certainly touted as a horror movie.
Yes.
I don't know that there's anything... It's not that it's subtle, but there's still stuff below the surface.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something with The Exorcist that stays with you for a while.
Especially if you were raised Catholic.
I wasn't raised Catholic, and that movie stuck with me for a long time.
Yeah,
long time. And every time I watch it since then, it sticks with me.
Yeah.
Especially when you know the backstory of some of the bizarre things that happened on that set, and just the interesting nuances as well, both with the actors and with the film itself.
Yeah, I would say it's a horror movie. Supernatural aspect, again, a clear, present bad guy. Sequels.
It does have sequels.
It does have sequels. It's not... I mean, it's tense the whole time, which is kind of what you want in a thriller. There's no brevity at all in this movie. Which, again, leads me to my definition of a thriller. But I think it's pure and simple horror movie.
See, and I go back and forth with The Exorcist all the time. I think it is hands down one of the scariest movies I've ever seen in my entire life, in terms, especially disturbing level, but also one that just sticks with you and makes it hard to sleep at night, I think. But I'm not necessarily certain I would put it in the horror genre. I always think of it in October, and I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong. I'm just saying this one is one I debate with internally a lot when I think about its categorical sense and where it fits. I don't really think it fits in thriller or horror. I think it's like its own crazy subgenre. But then we can go morph into all sorts of other exorcism movies and say, are they horror? And I think exorcism movies themselves have become horror films, but The Exorcist was really the first one that was mainstream that I know of that did it. So maybe that's why. I don't know. But it's definitely one that's on the fence for me. But I see why it's put into the horror genre. Okay. Misery.
I've actually not seen it all the way through. I've seen the quote-unquote scenes that matter. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's a thriller.
I would say that too, although it does have some graphic moments, but a lot of them are implied, not necessarily shown. This.
One of them's not implied.
Well, yes. But I mean, there are other pieces that, in the terms of the buildup of it or whatever. And, it's torture in that sequence, which kind of gives you the idea of a horror film.
Kind
but
of the precursor to the wave of Hostel and all the crap that inspired.
Yes, so. I was going to say, but Stephen King did it in a way,
classier way. Yeah.
No, yeah, I know. Okay, Shutter Island.
Instantly I'm thinking thriller.
Mm-hmm.
All of these are making me second guess myself and go back and forth and things like that. But that's
why they're on the fence.
I would say it's a thriller.
I would actually say thriller for this one too, although there are moments of horror that I would feel a horror vibe in the movie, and it has the mystery, the build up, the creepy character.
I would say though, definitely once you've seen it, and everything is again laid out for you, and you know all of the secrets, it's much more thriller than horror.
Yes, and I would agree with that as well. All right, Red State. For those of you that don't know this film, it is a Kevin Smith's baby that he took years to make. And it's about a crazy cult, basically, that has like a standoff.
Inspired by the Westboro Baptist Church kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would say it's a thriller.
Okay.
But
I actually would put this hands down in the horror category.
Really, defend that.
Well,
I think.
There's a lot of graphic violence.
Yes, there is.
There's a lot of jump factors. Crazy villain character.
Yes, you have a very outlandish villain.
Yes, and the head of the church. Twists that you don't anticipate, I thought.
Yeah.
And definite moments of scare. But I could defend it as a thriller as well, but my gut says
it's disturbing, but it's not really tense. So I guess I'd probably lean more toward horror in that regard. But there's, I don't know. There's nothing supernatural about it, which isn't the only criteria for a horror movie. But yeah, I think I'd put it more in the horror category than the thriller category.
All right, and finally, last one, The Others.
I've not seen The Others.
Okay. Well, The Others is a ghost story.
Yeah, the trailers freaked me out.
Yes, but I think it's more on the horror spectrum, but you could argue either way that it's thriller too, based on the criteria we've talked about. But that's what makes all of these films hard to categorize, because I think they have the best elements of both in many of these movies.
Right. So let me ask you this then, just for some further clarification. I think it's pretty obvious that what a horror movie is. Like you could name this is a straight up horror movie. What's a straight up thriller in your mind?
For me, I think for me a straight up thriller would be more of a crime based film, like we talked about, but not so many twists and turns. Not super graphic. Gosh, I don't know.
Like a pure thriller, you can't.
I'm trying to think of a movie that could be a pure thriller. If I was thinking of a pure thriller, what would you say would be a pure thriller for you?
I don't know. I don't know.
All
either.
right,
That's
listeners,
why I ask.
what would you think a pure thriller would be? Because we're having difficulty developing that. I would actually say that, if I'm looking at the list I have, but these are ones I specifically picked because I thought they were on the fence.
Sure.
I would probably say, okay, you know what? It's not on the list, but this would I would say a movie like The Usual Suspects.
Okay. Might
be more in what I would say not cookie cutter. That movie's not cookie cutter in any capacity, but I was going to say a thriller because of the way it was set up and developed.
But not just not a crime drama. Then.
It's not a crime. Yes. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I'm saying? That you would think The Usual Suspects would be a thriller. I mean, what other category would The Usual Suspects be in? Drama?
Crime drama. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but are most crime dramas thrillers?
The good ones.
Right.
But there's plenty of brevity in Usual Suspects.
Right. So basically what we're saying is that thriller fits in a lot of categories of movies. So
we don't know.
All horror films are thrillers as well? I don't know. Like, what is the answer?
All horror movies are thrillers, but not all thrillers are horror movies?
Right.
That's not true either. Some horror movies are not thrillers at all.
So basically we just wasted the last half an hour of your time. There we go. Thank you very much. But no.
You're welcome. You are welcome. Well, coming up next is October.
Woohoo!
So that means horror movies, or maybe even some thrillers.
Or thrillers as horrors. I don't know.
Scary movies. Halloween movies. All of the above. As well as theatrically, we have what?
I know that
Escape from Tomorrow.
Escape from Tomorrow is coming out. Gravity with George Clooney and Sandra Bullock.
That's a thriller.
There we go.
That's a thriller.
Well, but then okay.
Unless there are aliens.
I was gonna say, would you put Alien? That was
Alien is a horror movie.
Okay, I forgot Alien was supposed to be on my list, and that was the one I kept. Yes, Alien. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, sorry, we totally segued there. Okay.
Yes.
So Gravity, Captain Phillips comes out October 11th. I'm not sure what's coming out later in the month.
Escape Plan comes out October 18th.
Oh, yep, and I'm sure there's going to be a weekend visit to that movie for Ryan.
Sure will be. Technically, it's a September release, but next time we're back, hopefully I will be talking about Through the Never, the Metallica concert film, IMAX concert film.
Yes, and I believe I will be talking about Don John.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be talking about Gravity as well. Hopefully we'll both.
Does that come out between now and the next?
October 4th.
Okay.
Yep. So we'll be having to talk about those. We also have some great themed things planned for Halloween. We don't want to give away too much yet, but stay tuned. We're pretty excited about what's coming up. And I love the month of October, not only for this season, but also for the great and terrible movies that we will be watching in this
How many times this year are you going to watch Halloween 4 and 5?
Probably not as many as I have in the past because we have a 6-month-old.
I suppose with the baby playing on the floor, we probably shouldn't have the return of and the revenge of Michael Myers on the screen.
And even though you bought them for me on Blu-ray last year for my birthday, yes, I am the owner of both of those films on Blu-ray, people.
Yeah, boy.
I still have a tender spot in my heart to watch it on TV. So, thank you, AMC, for playing it.
They do
Yes.
play it quite a bit.
Yes.
So there's plenty of awesome stuff coming up on Ryan and Leah at the Movies. There's a comics explosion heading your way in the next several episodes of Positively Nerdy with the Comic Reviews. And a double shot of Sween Holic next week, as he will be back to talk about Radical Corner of Turtle Comic Talk. And we are going to continue to cover the X-Men Battle of the Atom crossover that's going on across all the X books at Marvel. And then hopefully we can get Rob back down to the nerd layer at some point, and we can record another Ryan and Rob Choose Their Own Adventure. So lots of awesome stuff podcast-wise coming up from Positively Nerdy. And the best way, as always, to keep up with that is to follow me on Twitter at Positively Nerdy. You can also email me or Leah, Ryan at Positively Nerdy, or Leah at Positively Nerdy. Let us know what you think a thriller movie is.
Yes,
or
please.
A horror movie is. And help us out moving forward. Let us know what your favorite kind of horror movies are, your favorite horror movies, period. Favorite subgenre of horror, all that fun stuff. Let us know, and we'll start compiling some listener feedback to go along with our Halloween-themed episodes.
Yes, because I would love any sort of suggestions on new, quirky horror movies that I don't know about. So if you have something that you think...
We are definitely going to come up with some recommendations that might have slipped off your radar, so we'd like you guys to do the same.
Yes, looking forward to it.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for joining us this time, and until next time, celebrate movies, celebrate your fandom.